have begun. Are you familiar enough with it to let us know if that was one landlord with 1,300 units or many different landlords? Just getting to the question.
My recollection is actually the 1,300 is both new construction and preservation.
I see.
So I can speak to the preservation component of that.
Would you mind?
Yeah, so your specific question is what type?
I had a two-part question. How many landlords, or is it mostly small 1 to 5 unit homes?
That's a great question.
And also the degree or the length of affordability.
The new affordability. Mm-hmm. So in general, and this is like really the vast majority of the work that we do. When we provide assistance, the owner is required to enter into a regulatory agreement with the city that restricts use for them as well as their successors. It runs with the land for at least 30 years. Okay. There are circumstances where we're providing deeper assistance or longer benefits where the length of the regulatory restrictions go longer than that. But for the most part, it is 30 years. To get to your other question, I don't have the specific breakdown. I know that in the last 5 years, it's been 168 buildings with 928 units. I know that in the last year, we have done a couple or preserved a couple portfolios of properties, and actually in the last couple years, of properties in East New York and the surrounding community that were a lot of small buildings. So the 1 to 8 unit buildings, but where one owner owned them, and we worked with that owner to preserve a number of those properties all at the same time. That is a very efficient way to address some of the issues around the size of the housing stock. It's, just from a financing perspective, it makes it more manageable.
Thank you, it's very helpful.
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Knuckles.
Thank you. Does the anti-harassment responsibility within HPD fall under your jurisdiction?
No, it does not. I believe that Deputy
That's why she's
Commissioner...
smiling.
I think our Deputy Commissioner for Enforcement will be here later today, and he can speak to that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Zarga? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Next speaker is Adam Weinstein.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, Commissioners. Nice to see you again. I am the President and Chief Executive of Phipps Houses, a not-for-profit affordable housing developer in New York. I'm here to speak in favor of the East New York rezoning. I'll disclose self-interest. The East New York rezoning was the principal reason why Phipps went out and purchased a very large 4-acre parcel in East New York solely for the purpose of developing affordable housing. And when I say affordable housing in this instance, it is our intention to develop under HPD's ELA program for households at 60, 50, 40, and 30 exclusively. Without the rezoning, we would not have been able to do that. In fact, what likely would have wound up without the rezoning on that parcel is a strip mall with 400 or 500 parking spaces and a variety of uses that may or may not have been useful to the community. Instead, in addition to retail, for which we do believe living wage is an important component, we will build between 1,000 and 1,100, we hope, affordable housing units. We're in the midst of site planning now with our architects, and we're enthusiastic supporters. The irony, of course, and I'm somewhat sympathetic to the concerns about gentrification and market moves. It's very difficult for us ever to imagine that there was a time when markets didn't move in the galloping pace that they have in the past 2 years. I think there has been some cooling in the marketplace for land acquisition in the past couple of months, interestingly. But the irony is that affordable housing developers and not-for-profits such as ours have many of the same market dynamics that take place when trying to build affordable housing, except we have to do it standing on one leg with both hands tied behind our back, in that we need to make the housing perform. the hard work of affordable housing isn't so much developing it or acquiring land on which to develop it, but making it operate and preserving it for that use for the very long term. And that requires that we be able to provide amenities, staffing to maintain and keep our buildings in the best possible repair, to be a real resource, to heat, to a bunch of regressive taxes in the form of heating and providing water to, and insuring our properties, which don't differ at all from the market conditions. And it is very difficult to do that if housing is exclusively reserved for households, for instance, at 30% of AMI. The ongoing operating subsidy required to do that would be enormous. The manner in which the city currently subsidizes housing, I think is, in my 26 years of doing this, is by far the one that achieves the best objectives. And I commend HPD's commitment of enormous amounts of capital to the East New York plan.
Thank you, Mr. Weinstein. Let me ask you a question. I mean, you operate, just to this point, you operate on a not-for-profit basis affordable housing, build and operate affordable housing all over the city. The challenge of maintaining housing for people with an AMI below, or households with an AMI below 30%, is the absence of operating subsidy money?
Correct. Yes, I mean, essentially, a household at 30% of AMI is most likely to be one who receives a welfare shelter allowance, a source of income that is essentially a TANF, a form of welfare assistance. There are households who earn 30% of AMI and pay 30% of their household income toward rent as well, but the predominance are households receiving welfare shelter allowance. That is insufficient to, it probably can pay to heat your building, but it can't pay to insure it or provide staffing to keep it clean.
You mean for that unit's share?
Yes,
right.
so it needs a gap on an annual ongoing basis. And by the way, I think that this is an important federal responsibility, that this rental assistance be available, widely available, and New York has a very active, two very active, New York State has three or New York City has three active Section 8 rental assistance programs to assist.
And just so to be clear, that the way for families with below 30% AMI, the way that gap is made up is through federal Section 8.
Principally, yes.
And that's limited by
However,
the federal government.
However, for instance, in the development that we plan, we believe that we can include 15% of the households at 30 and 10% of the households at 40 AMI and still make the building work with a balance of the units at 50 and 60% of AMI. No higher than. So in truth, you're really winding up with households at 25 to 27% of AMI, 35 to 40% of AMI, so in order to get a band of households.
And just to accommodate anything below that level really requires federal Section 8
Correct.
vouchers.
Yes.
And there's just a cap on those now?
Beg pardon?
There's a cap nationally and what New York City gets?
It's federal budget, yeah. It's New York City's administrative plan. Both NYCHA and HPD have Section 8. And there are many demands on that to house households in special needs housing. Section 8 is a very, very important resource in doing so. To house formerly homeless households, Section 8 is a critical need.
Mr. Knuckles.
Thank you. So Adam, I just wanted to ask about the planned development in East New York, and you mentioned the range from 60% AMI down to 30. Where do you anticipate, or what do you anticipate the median AMI will be in that project?
That's a good question. Weighted average, probably, I would need to do the math. I can't do that in my head, given the percentages of units, but it is the weighted average of HPD's extremely low and low income program, the ELA program. And a word to that, the regulatory agreement, here we're talking about zoning. And as we all know, zoning changes. We're here today to discuss changes in zoning. HPD's regulatory agreements are a powerful recorded instrument and their mortgages and their enforcement mortgages are powerful recorded instruments to maintain affordability. So we happily enter into them, and I think HPD and the city have become much wiser about that tool, that very important tool that is not really subject to political changes in attitudes about zoning, for instance. So I'm a fan, is what I would say. If I had to guess, just quickly running numbers in my head, I would say the average would be 45, the weighted average would be 45 to 48% of AMI if you were to do a weighted average of all of the household incomes.
And your affordability runs for?
We would agree to a permanent affordability provided the tax abatement is available, the real estate tax abatement is available. We have no interest whatsoever in converting this property into market rate or unrestricted housing.
Thank you.
And the length of that tax abatement essentially depends on state legislature.
Correct. The current abatement maximum is 60 years under the 420C statute.
Ms. Delauz, then Ms. Efron.
Hi, Adam. Happy New Year. Thanks for coming out for a second month in a row. I'm just wondering, and I appreciate Pip's interest in the site. I think it's a very important part of the proposal. And I'm just wondering, given some of the other things that the community has raised about community needs, could you just talk a little bit more whether or not your proposal includes any community facility space, open space, anything like that that would also address some of the things that have been raised?
Right, sure. It's hard for me to think about, while the word houses is in our name, it's impossible for me to think of the work that we do as just housing. So about 100 to 150,000 square feet, in addition to the 1,000 to 1,100 apartments, will be for commercial or community facility uses. While we are not for profit, we're also not unresponsive to market demands. And the reality is that ground floor space is best used for non-residential uses. We can discuss this as part of ZQA if you like.
That was last month.
But not all ground floor uses are well designed for a retail use, for a merchant. So we view those as very prime opportunities, particularly where you don't want the impact of people, of nighttime traffic, for instance, where a site is across from someone's home. So we would love to do universal pre-K and other health-related facilities on the ground floor of the building. Fulton Avenue, Fulton Street and Atlantic Avenue are great retail locations, great potential retail locations, I should say. And we like to think carefully about the, I joke that I spend more of my time thinking about non-residential uses in our buildings than I do about residential. Phipps houses, housing is second nature, but coming up with the right retailers that meet community needs that are demanded in the community is very, very important.
Just to that point, have you, as
And
you...
open space.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that was it.
The plan of the buildings is to incorporate open space in a courtyard-like setting.
I don't know if you're at the stage yet in your development, but have you started thinking about the types of retail that you would like and the types of retail from your perspective and your engagements with the community that the community has expressed interest in or
I think we need more, I think we'd like to have more input. It's a careful balancing act between shoppers and merchants. I think I certainly hear the concerns about big box. The reality is that Atlantic is not a pedestrian avenue. Fulton is. So that kind of dictates a more neighborhood character toward Fulton and one that is more oriented toward automobiles on Atlantic. I should point out that we will provide, notwithstanding potential pending legislation, we will provide a substantial amount of parking subgrade because the site is a brownfield.
Ms. Efron?
Thank you. Presumably in the 1,100 units, you'll have quite a few children, and while I seem to be harping on this issue, the closest Brooklyn Public Library branch with high-speed internet is outside of the zoning district, so several blocks away from most of the high density or the future concentration. Will you, or do you, as automatically provide high-speed internet service for buildings, or is this something that is deemed outside of the services of a landlord in new construction?
We haven't. It's an interesting idea. And we'll take that. We are devoted to improving amenities for the long term in our buildings. So many of our buildings today that we build, it isn't sufficient in my mind to provide an unprogrammed community room, having universal devoting space for universal pre-K, devoting space for fitness club, rooftop gardening. These have become a concierge that takes packages. You've heard me talk about this before. These are important things. Providing wireless access is an interesting thought. I'll have to give that some consideration.
Thanks.
Ms. Ortiz.
Hi. One question, we've heard a lot about potential deeper levels of affordability, and as you mentioned a little earlier, the challenges of that have less to do with financing the initial construction, but perhaps more to do with maintaining them over time. They don't cash flow the way you need them to. What are do you have any insight or recommendations for us as we, is this a challenge it's just impossible to undertake? I mean, with respect to the 30% and getting to at least 30% AMI, is it outside of the regulatory toolbox? Should we be thinking about it as part of the regulatory toolbox, or is this something we simply should be thinking about, the Section 8 voucher option and lobbying for federal resources? Or I'd just be interested in your insight.
Well, this isn't an MIH hearing, but the reality is that an internal cross-subsidy is the best means. Obviously, if the maximum household income that we will serve is 60% of AMI, the ability to serve very low and extremely low income households is math. If the rent per square foot is 3, 4, 5, and 6 times which can be borne by a household at 60% of AMI, the math changes. I didn't want to minimize the importance in underwriting the initial construction either. A lot of the work that we do today, unlike 15 years ago, or even 12 years ago, depends very much on private sources of mortgage capital. And thus, having supportable income, that first mortgage makes a big difference, one issued by HDC and insured by its affiliate REMIC. So I don't want to minimize the importance. I just wanted to highlight the ongoing challenge. Even if you built the building for 100% city capital, you would still have a problem of keeping the lights on and keeping the halls clean and insuring it on a daily basis if there was insufficient resources. And that doesn't really answer, the first part of my answer was really directed toward what you're saying. I think HPD's Ella program has pushed the envelope. For the affordable housing community, it has raised the bar to say, reach deeper. Put some of your own money into this. Make an effort to reach deeper in the affordability level in a development that is 100% affordable.
But that's a non-regulatory tool that you're
It's not a regulatory. Well, there's a regulatory agreement, but it is not a statutory tool.
And this being a weak market environment, this issue of cross-subsidy, the ability to cross-subsidize really makes it a challenge.
It does. I wish I were Adam Smith, not Adam Weinstein.
Thank you.
Glad you're Adam.
You'd be immortal. Any other questions, Mr. Weinstein? Thank you very much. The next speaker is Jackie Mallon from the Department of Small Business Services. Ms. Mallon.
Good afternoon. My name is Jackie Mallon, and I am the First Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Small Business Services. As you probably heard earlier, at SBS, we seek to foster a thriving, equitable city by connecting New Yorkers to good jobs, creating stronger businesses, and building a fairer economy. In support of Mayor de Blasio's workforce development strategy, Career Pathways, One City Working Together, SBS is expanding industry partnerships, significantly increasing investments in training New Yorkers, and supporting Hire NYC, a new set of policies that require companies doing business with the city to move New Yorkers to the front of the hiring line. Through our network of 17 Workforce One career centers across the 5 boroughs, SBS trains and connects job seekers to employment opportunities and offers businesses cost-saving recruitment services.
Ms. Mallon, talk into the mic so
Oh, I'm
your
sorry.
words are recorded for posterity.
Is that better?
Yes, much better.
All right. You want me to start all over? No, I'm just kidding.
Nice try.
Just to consumed an extra 15 seconds, so go
I
ahead.
won't be long. We serve between 125,000 and 150,000 New Yorkers annually and connect roughly 25 to 30,000 people to jobs with an average wage of about $12.20 per hour. As Commissioner Bishop mentioned earlier today, we will be opening a Workforce One Career Center in East New York and are working closely with a group of local community-based organizations to design services tailored to meet the needs of the community. Hire NYC, one of the largest and most impactful targeted hiring programs in the nation, will leverage the network of Workforce One Career Centers to connect New Yorkers to open positions created through the city's purchases and investments. This is a key effort to ensure we are supporting the economic success of working families and our economy as a whole. Now I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have on our workforce development efforts in East New York.
Mr. Knuckles.
Thank you. Commissioner Mallon, I don't know if you know the answer, but I'll ask it anyway.
I'll do my best.
Do you happen to know who is the single largest employer in East New York?
I don't actually know the answer. I'm going to bet it is either like a bus company or a healthcare organization.
Okay, because
I remember the industries, not the specific employers.
my question goes to, has the city considered talking to the first, second, third, or group of largest employers out there with a sense of what their employee needs are and their hiring regimen and making a link between those needs and the workforce development policy that you're formulating for East New York. Do you follow me?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we engage probably thousands of businesses in any given year, and most certainly we would, as part of our strategy in East New York, we would engage local businesses and understand their hiring needs. But we would be working toward connecting local people to local jobs when that makes sense, but also as part of the Workforce One Career Center system, local residents will get access to jobs throughout the 5 boroughs. So we think that, we'll sort of cover our bases, much more effectively.
Ms. Deleuze.
Ms. Mallon, I don't know if this question is really to you, and I maybe should have asked it to Commissioner Bishop earlier today.
I'll still do my best.
One of the missing pieces sometimes in looking at workforce readiness is obviously people's level of education. And I'm just wondering, as part of the process that has been going on in East New York over the last several months, has DYCD also been at the table to talk about the adult education and literacy needs in the neighborhood, and what is the intersection between what you're doing and what they might be doing?
So they have not been a part of our specific conversations yet, but we're only getting started, and that's a great suggestion. But we are working very closely with DYCD in general. And as I said, our approach is to work with the community-based organization, figure out what the needs are, and if adult literacy is something that is really a big issue, we'll have to put in services that address that. If I'm going to guess, based on my knowledge of the area, there's a lot of out-of-school, out-of-work youth. That's probably going to be a tailored set of services, and possibly folks who are formerly acquainted with the criminal justice system, who all need tailored services. But we're only starting, so does that help?
It's helpful to know that would be part of any plan, because it's absolutely a critical piece.
Yep.
Any other questions for Ms. Mallon? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Perry-Ann Carson. Is that pronouncing that?
Perry-Ann.
Perry-Ann Carson from the Department of Cultural Affairs.
Good afternoon. My name is Perry Ann Carson, and I'm here today to deliver testimony on behalf of the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs. My colleagues and I are pleased to join efforts with residents, city agencies, and community-based organizations in developing a comprehensive vision for East New York and nearby neighborhoods. Recognizing culture's vital role in community development, DCLA has created a new initiative, Building Community Capacity, that seeks to strengthen the organizations and networks that connect residents in targeted neighborhoods to cultural programming. I am proud to announce today that East New York, Cypress Hills, and Brownsville will be the first neighborhoods in the city to host this new program. Starting now and running through summer 2017, the program takes a collaborative and comprehensive approach to building cultural capacity by bringing together local cross-sector stakeholders for trainings, workshops, public programs, and more. These activities will identify and build on community assets and relationships while supporting local efforts to increase the neighborhood's capacity to provide opportunities for arts and culture to thrive. East New York is the first of several targeted neighborhoods for building community capacity, and the program will operate based on the strengths of each particular community. But in general, the strategies and outcomes we are seeking to achieve include strengthening the organizational capacity of community-based cultural groups through board development, financial management, and resource development, supporting cross-sector relationships that allow the cultural community to play an active role in community development decisions and efforts, connecting cultural leaders and those in business, community, and economic development, faith-based organizations, education, housing, health, and other civic arenas, resulting in mutual understanding and respect, resource sharing, and collaboration for the betterment of the community. Elevating public awareness and expanding opportunities for community members to meaningfully engage in local cultural activity as leaders, audience members, artists, students, and volunteers. Activating underused spaces by streamlining the permitting process or recruiting local businesses and property owners to provide access to underutilized space for exhibitions, performances, or other cultural activity. This program will be as powerful as our local partners want it to be. They are the key to its success. We've already initiated conversations with groups serving the area, including Arts East New York, Pure Elements, and the Elders Share the Arts. Through planning sessions, meetings, and community-led tours of the area, we have witnessed the incredible breadth of cultural activity already supported by the East New York community. We are honored to have this opportunity to work with all of you and with stakeholders throughout the neighborhood to build on this energy, enhancing the role that culture plays as together we find ways to empower these communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carson. Questions? Ms. Deluz, then Ms. Efron.
Hi, thank you for being here, and nice to hear the announcement. How much in resources is being committed? And is that, I'm assuming that's separate from the Neighborhood Development Fund, which is really focused on capital?
Yes. Receives a grant, and the grant goes to the community as a whole. And each community will receive $138,750. The majority of that goes to, I'd say a little more than half, not a significant, not almost all of it, goes to hiring somebody who will work in the community, who's embedded there to kind of keep all of this kind of going, organizing the workshops, the meetings, the various databases and all that will be created.
To clarify, is that 138,000 for East New York and then another 138 for Brownsville, another 138 for Cypress Hills?
No, that together we consider that one community.
Gotcha.
Ms. Efron.
And in addition to that, there's a bunch of workshops and all of that where there's other federal funds so that all of those will be provided pro bono.
I would just encourage you to reach out to the foundation community who are all interested in that sort of grassroots activity. But my question is really about whether cultural assets are mapped by Department of Cultural Affairs. As we go through these rezonings, I'm at least aware that every cultural organization who receives money from the city is required to note their catchment areas or where they actually are giving or performing or doing services. Does the Department of Cultural Affairs map that information? It could be very useful for us as a commission to know that as we go into these rezoned neighborhoods.
We, as Department of Cultural Affairs, we map those organizations that we fund, so we're very aware of that. As part of what is expected from this program, that's one of the things communities will do, because we realize that, you know, you've got a lot of small, very small community-based arts organizations that, you know, they're maybe all volunteer, 1 or 2 staff, and so one of the things that we're going to help them do is map their community, have community calendars, databases of all the, you know, the cultural providers and various stakeholders in the community. So that's a lot of what this is about, is helping them understand who is in their community, how you can better reach them.
Yeah, I guess the point I was making is that some of the larger cultural organizations citywide are actually participating in those neighborhoods in small but meaningful ways, and if they could be coordinated, my guess is that the impact from both would be a lot stronger.
I'm not sure I'm understanding your, sorry. I mean,
Just my point that Brooklyn Museum probably is participating in these neighborhoods. Lincoln Center is probably participating in some way on a haphazard basis in these neighborhoods. And if there was some way to even know that, it would help the local arts organizations probably get more out of those experiences.
absolutely, and that's one of the things that we can bring to the table, because you're right, in far more actually than even the organizations that are there are all the cultural activities that are brought in by outside arts organizations that happen in schools and in churches and libraries and parks and so forth. And so all of that is part of what will be, you know, the stakeholders in this community as well.
Thank you.
I would just like to note from all of my colleagues that one of the things that Department of City Planning is now doing is enhancing its mapping capacity so as to be able to provide a much more comprehensive view of what exactly is going on in every neighborhood. Now, it's not going to pick up private institutions, but it can pick up pretty much what the city is doing, what the city is investing in on a much broader scale. It's a long-term endeavor, to be sure, but it's a start. And I think will be able to provide us and communities more generally with a sense of, a much better sense of what's happening in communities all over the city. So, any other questions for Ms. Carson? Thank you very much. Now switching back to those opposed, the next 5 speakers are Lorna Blake, Patrick Saunders, next, Marie Massonet. Next, Dolores Stallworth. Thank you for your patience.
My name is Dolores Stallworth, and I am a member of the New York Community for Change and Real Affordable for All. I live in Ocean Hill with my daughter. I agree with the need for affordable housing, but this plan by Mayor de Blasio will leave too many of us out on the streets. In 2014, after having to move from Clinton Hill, I was desperate to find a place to live for my daughter and I. After searching all over Brooklyn, I ran into a church member who was willing to rent me an apartment in Ocean Hill near Broadway Junction at the price that I could afford. So I took it, even though I never received any lease or anything at first. After about a year of living there, I found out that the church member was running a scam in which he was illegally moving tenants into apartments and charging rent. Even though the building had been foreclosed on due to this scam, I could be forced out of my apartment any day now. Just to pay my rent and provide for my daughter, I'm already working 2 jobs. I've already started looking for housing down south because I don't know where I'm going to go. The mayor's plan will force me and thousands of my neighbors to fight for the little amount of truly affordable housing created under his plan. Most of us will be left in the streets if we don't build this right. Mayor de Blasio, we need real affordable housing, not just a giveaway to developers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stallworth.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Stallworth, you might want to speak to Deputy Commissioner Hernandez, just see if he can be of help from HPD. And next speaker is Mark Miley. Mark Miley? No? Okay, switching back to those in favor. The next 5 speakers are Blaise Backer from SBS, Cara McAteer from Phipps Houses, Farida Kabir, Ted Rose testified already, I believe,
Yeah, you did.
and Satar Bailey, I think. So first, Blaise Backer.
All right, good afternoon, Chair Weisbrod and the members of the City Planning Commission. My name is Michael Blaise Backer. I am the Deputy Commissioner for Neighborhood Development at the Department of Small Business Services. Over the past 16 months, my team has had the privilege of coordinating SBS's proactive and collaborative involvement in the East New York Community Plan with local stakeholders and sister agencies. In past rezoning efforts, SBS was often brought into the ULURP process in the 11th hour and was not an active participant in the important community planning and engagement work needed to effectively address small business challenges and concerns. But starting with East New York, we fully embraced our role as an integral neighborhood resource, helping to develop and connect services for East New York's small businesses and job seekers. Today, I'd like to provide the Commission with more details on the ongoing work of SBS's Neighborhood Development Division that is currently underway with the help of our community partners in East New York. The overarching goal of SBS's neighborhood planning work in East New York is to foster inclusive economic development and stronger commercial districts by proactively engaging neighborhood stakeholders, building the capacity of community-based organizations, and facilitating connections to city economic development resources. Over the past year, our division has coordinated over a dozen small business, workforce, and commercial corridor meetings and listening sessions with local stakeholders to share information on existing SBS programs, as well as solicit genuine feedback and ideas for new and improved place-based services. Many of the initiatives addressed in earlier SBS testimony demonstrate our commitment to immediate action. With that said, we also quickly recognize the need for additional layers of street-level engagement and evaluation before deploying definitive commercial revitalization interventions. With the direct assistance of local organizations like Cypress Hills LDC, the LDC of East New York, and Highland Park CDC, we have embarked on just that through a new process we are calling Neighborhood 360. Neighborhood 360 is a comprehensive approach to neighborhood development that embraces ground-up community engagement and planning to identify, develop, and launch customized, place-based commercial revitalization programs and services. It relies on inclusive partnerships with community-based organizations, local stakeholders, and industry practitioners across all phases of the commercial corridor planning and implementation process. In East New York, we commenced this new approach through a series of collaborative scoping discussions with our aforementioned community partners that strategically inform the deployment of commercial district needs assessments on the Fulton, Atlantic, Liberty, and Pitkin corridors. The commercial district needs assessment will be completed collaboratively over the next 3 months, a joint effort of the local CBO partners and our neighborhood planning team, and will include a deep analysis of the area's demographics, small business conditions, retail leakage, the built environment, community capacity, and the district's self-identified strengths, challenges, and opportunities. These publicly released assessments and a subsequent action plan will serve as a roadmap for recommendations on how to best align city and SBS resources with the needs of the neighborhood's retail corridors. After verifying local-level challenges and opportunities, SBS will competitively solicit proposals this spring and summer from local community-based organizations and economic development practitioners to act as Neighborhood 360 providers. These providers will be funded over the next 1 to 5 years to build and sustain their local economic development capacity while implementing identified commercial revitalization projects, which might include such items as business attraction and retention efforts, merchant organizing, bid formation, streetscape beautification, district marketing, or public space activation and maintenance. Last 2 sentences, if I may.
2 sentences.
As it unfolds, Neighborhood 360 will allow SBS and its East New York community partners to track changes in the local small business climate and react nimbly with strategic service development and delivery to hopefully help mitigate the impacts of the market over time. The program aims to build and maintain a strong SBS staff presence focused on East New York beyond the community planning and ULURP processes, thereby cultivating stronger community relationships and agency accountability.
Long sentences, but nevertheless,
Easier said than done.
nevertheless, there were 2 sentences. Questions for Commissioner Backer? Ms. Knight.
Hello, Commissioner.
Hi.
I know you're in the early phases of your needs assessment, but are there any sort of early signs of what some of the needs of the indigenous small business community are?
Yes, there are. So again, while the needs assessment, again, it's sort of at different stages depending on the quarter and the partner. That was just really got underway in early December. But that being said, we had a lot of community meetings with, the Coalition for Community Advancement and the groups I mentioned, and, a lot of, there are some programs that we've already been able to put into place. So, for example, and I believe Commissioner Bishop may have touched on some of these, but some related to lease negotiations. So we have some workshops already that have started. They'll be taking place in East New York soon. It will allow for pro bono lawyers to help with lease negotiations. There's also the fast track, I also believe Commissioner Bishop may have touched on, but this has to do with also providing a really tailored, and we're actually working with Cypress Hills LDC on this one specifically to help provide sort of a tailored business training program to help businesses adapt to the changing neighborhood so it could be, again, sort of adapting their business model, adapting a number of items. But we're making sure, we're sort of looking, we're going to hopefully offer that more, for multiple sectors, but right now we're sort of focusing in and learning, how can we tailor that training, which again is offered around the city, but to East New York and to the businesses that exist there. But beyond that, I would say that a lot of things are still underway. I think we'll know a lot more as we do a lot more data analysis and also talk to groups, which will be doing, those community partners I mentioned will be doing the majority of that sort of field work and community engagement so that we're really getting it from the partners on the ground.
Thank you.
Ms. Ortiz.
Hi. Thank you for your testimony, and I'm particularly interested in this topic. I'm curious, in addition to the question previously raised about sort of what's the early word on what's needed, I know that the assessments also look at what can be supported, what sort of the market can support. And one of the things we're looking at in the rezoning is increased density. And I wondered, to what extent, and I understand that the assessments won't look at the density, but sort of what's your take on what can be supported right now? Do you have a sense of, where market demand is at? And what impact do you think the rezoning will have on the ability to support improved retail for the people that live there?
So I think what we were able to do at this point, so as I touched on, so the needs assessments does involve a key part of our neighborhood planning team, which is doing some of the data analysis. So similar to some work you may be familiar with, right? We've started doing retail leakage analysis. And at this stage, what the data tells us from Esri Business Analysts is it's about a $44 million unmet need in the community for retail. So, and when you look at the different sectors there, you see things that aren't entirely surprising about what some of the needs are, including grocery stores and food access, a lot of apparel and shoe stores, department stores, electronics, as someone mentioned, a lot of specialty food service. So there's things we know are already needed. I think when it comes to what the impacts of the zoning, how that might change things, I think that it's premature for us to know. We haven't looked at that yet. But you had a second part to the question I may have missed.
No, just generally, what's your sense of how more density will impact the ability to meet, the community's needs with respect to retail over time?
Well, I mean, so I think the plan, as it, as I understand it, for Atlantic and Fulton and Pitkin, where there will be, I guess, an enhanced commercial overlay that will require active retail uses. I mean, our sense is that that's, a positive for the neighborhood. It will bring in, provide for additional retail space over time, help create continuity on those commercial corridors, and ultimately bring more services into the community. I think our challenge and what we were working, again, with the community partners on is helping to retain the existing businesses that may exist, say, on somewhere like Fulton Street, which has, is a fairly intact commercial corridor. A lot of the buildings will likely remain there, I believe, after the rezoning and have the opportunity to maintain the retail businesses they have. So we'll be working as a result, again, of the CDNA, and what that tells us, we'll be working, once we put out this, again, RFP for services, hopefully community partners will work with us to develop a business retention plan that could help to maintain businesses while also looking to attract those that the community needs to fill vacant retail space.
One other question. So one of the things, and I've raised this in the past, the rezoning looks to create sort of three streets of retail. So we have Atlantic, we've got Pitkin, and then in the middle,
Liberty.
What is it?
Liberty.
Liberty. Thank you, Liberty. One of the things we see a lot of vacancy right now, and a challenging retail environment currently on Pitkin. We don't have a lot of we don't have any significant retail on Liberty, and then Atlantic would see a lot more potential development. My concern has always been, are we incorporating too much retail for what we think we can support? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sort of asking folks who might have some insight. Given the fact that we don't see the vibrancy that we'd like to see along Pitkin right now. So does it help to sort of diminish the density of retail by offering that opportunity on Liberty?
I'm not certain either. I'm not really an expert in the land use aspects of the the different types of retail and the retail use groups they each allow. But my sense is that the plan hopes to, and someone else touched on this in earlier testimony, that Atlantic Avenue, a lot of density will be going there. There'll be opportunity for larger footprints of retail and perhaps anchor retail and perhaps retail that attracts people from outside the neighborhood, while Pitkin and Liberty would, and to a certain extent Fulton, would remain sort of neighborhood services. So I think that the plan actually hopes to address that issue, where you can, and also with the supply, hopefully the supply of new retail space, it could help to address sort of market pressures in the retail market and help us to retain mom and pop retail.
Thank you.
And plus, as you know, the plan also provides, through these ground floor spaces, an opportunity for community facilities like daycare centers, which are
not just
major
commercial
need
retail.
in this community, and especially given that in the early years there would be so much ability on the part of HPD to influence the not only the housing but the nature of the retail that would hopefully enable community facilities to flourish here as well, which is really, I think, for all of us, a very important goal.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Backer? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Next speaker is Kara McAteer from Phipps Houses. Welcome, Ms. McAteer.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I'm Kara McAteer, I'm with Phipps Houses, and I think you heard just a little bit earlier this afternoon from our CEO, Adam Weinstein, but I'm here to reiterate our support Phipps Houses for the East New York plan. We have a large site that we've purchased in the area. It's the former Chloe Foods site, and it's an entire block between Fulton Atlantic and Chestnut and Euclid. So the rezoning would allow us to develop that with over 1,000 units of affordable housing. And these would be permanently affordable low-income housing units. That would be for low and very low-income households. The income levels would be consistent with HPD's ELA term sheet, so they'd be 30, 40, 50, and 60% of AMI. In terms of actual incomes, the low end would be a studio unit could be rented by someone with about $16,000 a year in income. At the higher end, 60% AMI, you'd have units as big as 3 bedrooms for a family who's earning like $51,000. So it would be a really broad range of incomes. And then also we'd have around 100,000 square feet on the ground floors. We'd have active uses, community facility, and retail uses. So this will be our first development in the East New York and Cypress Hills neighborhoods, and we're looking forward to working with the communities there.
Thank you, Ms. McAteer. Questions? Ms. Levin.
You know, Ms. McIntyre, one of the unusual features of this rezoning is its complete nature. And typically, we would see a large project like this come through on its own ULURP with an opportunity to look at a proposed design and a community engagement process around what the building's going to look like and how it relates to its surroundings. Have you been, I don't know where you are in the development process, but have you been or will you be consulting with the community about the design of the building? Certainly we've heard a lot about the affordability requirements and you know, the affordable housing components to it, but this is going to be an important flagpole for what happens in East New York.
Well, at this point, we're only starting to think about design, and we'll see how the rezoning comes out and what the actual districts are, and then we can really think about how we'll design. But we do look forward to working with the community once we know what the zoning is that we're working with.
Okay, yeah, I think that's going to be very important, though maybe not required if we sort of send it on its way. Thank you, and good luck.
Thanks.
Any other questions, Ms. McAteer? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next speaker. I'm sorry. Mr. Cantor. Ms. McAteer, not so fast.
Yes.
Ma'am, you said that you're awaiting results of this hearing and the ultimate vote. Did you buy the property outright?
Yeah, we did, and I think Adam probably talked about that a little, but we did purchase the property in anticipation that we would eventually be able to develop affordable housing.
And you analyzed that based upon what was on the street in the way of requirements of the plans going forward?
Yes, and just we understand that there's the rezoning hasn't been adopted, so we know there's some uncertainty, but we bought it with the hope that we could develop a substantial amount of affordable housing.
Thank you, Ms. McAteer. Next speaker is Reade Kabir. Reade Kabir, am I pronouncing that correct? Next speaker is Sator Toyaj. I don't know. What? Okay. Okay, going back to those opposed. The next 5 speakers are Valerie Most, Emily for Van Ingen, Barry Smith, Montel Brown, and Edgar Gonzalez. First, Valerie Most. Welcome, Ms. Most. Thank you for your patience.
Good afternoon. It's actually Mast with an A.
Oh, Mast. I'm sorry.
Good afternoon. My name is Valerie Mast, and I'm actually a longtime homeowner in East New York, Cypress Hills, and also a resident there. and I stand with the Coalition of Community Advancement. I'm testifying on the need of the city to help owners of the 1 to 4 family homes preserve their housing and create protections for our renters. Small homes with 1 to 4 apartment units are the predominant housing type in the rezone area, accounting for more than 3,000 units. Most of the small homes in the area are over 100 years old and need major system repairs, including new roofs and energy retrofits. Furthermore, a large percentage of the small homes in the community contain basement apartments. Many of my fellow homeowners are low-income, long-time homeowners. Some are senior citizens, and most rent at affordable levels to their tenants. We want to keep our tenants, but we also need to afford our homes in the long term as property taxes and water rates increase. Complicating matters even further, there continues to be a foreclosure crisis in Community Board 5 with over 1,000 foreclosure actions filed in our zip code last year. Our homeowners are already vulnerable, and the rezoning has made them more so. All of these factors, the age of the homes and the need for repairs and retrofits, the continuing foreclosure crisis, and the low incomes of many homeowners make our neighborhood ripe for speculators who prey on my fellow homeowners in deed theft and loan modification scams and harass them to sell their homes at below market rates. I have to testify that I get about 3 to 4 phone calls weekly asking if I'm interested in selling my home. Homeowners are being constantly, homeowners are constantly being barragated, by harassing phone calls and in-person visits to sell their homes for cheap prices. We urge the city to stop these attacks by creating and enforcing rules or laws on these unscrupulous small businesses, realtors, and mortgage brokers, bringing criminal charges if fraud is committed, and ensuring that the City Commission on Human Rights is investigating fair housing practices in the buying and selling of homes. The coalition proposes policies that would assist owners of small homes to support low and moderate income homeowners and to keep rent low for tenants. We urge the city to implement them. Here's a few things we're asking for. Good neighborhood tax credit property to incentivize owners keeping rents affordable in small homes. Retrofitting and basement conversion programs that require homeowners to sustain low-income tenants. Creating a fund for capital upgrades for low-income homeowners to finance roof replacements and energy efficiency measures to offset rising housing costs. Explore ways that the city can lower the rates for water and sewer bills for long-term, low-income owner-occupant of 1 to 4 family homes. Extend the tax exemptions of homeowners who purchase and subsidize homes through HPD. There's a couple more points, and I know my time has come to an end, but to close this off, I really do want to highlight the fact that there's a lot of talk about the future of the new housing that's coming in. But as a resident and an owner, the ones who are presently living there are going to also feel that impact. And even though I don't live specifically on the streets that are going to be changed, I will feel that impact as a homeowner, and I want my children to live there, and I want to remain there, and I want my tenants to as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mass. Just a couple of questions. One, your block, as you said, is not going to change. Are you in the rezoning area itself?
I'm near the rezoning area, yes.
Near the rezoning area?
Yes.
And you mentioned a number of different initiatives to the city. Some of them, at least with respect to rebates on water rates, and I know HPD has a green initiative endeavor. Have you explored those and whether they're helpful to you as a homeowner?
I know that there are different things out there. I think the question becomes the income. I think the challenges that sometimes have come across, at least for different homeowners that I've spoken to, is that the income that you're supposed to make, or the categories that you're supposed to fit in, it's really, really difficult. And so sometimes there's many who just don't.
Requires even lower income.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so some of these things, I would not benefit, and other people would not benefit, because I think they're asking for all the tenants' income and how much they're making annually. You're supposed to put that all together, and so there are a lot of barriers that keep some homeowners from being able to utilize these services.
questions, Ms. Mast? Thank you. If you could submit your testimony, including the items that you didn't have an opportunity to mention, that would be great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Emily Van Ingen?
Good afternoon. My name is Emily Van Ingen. I'm the Director of Programs for Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation, a proud member of the Coalition for Community Advancement, and I'll testify today on the impact that the rezoning will have on a community I care deeply about and have dedicated the last 20 years of my life to. We're urging you to vote no on the city's East New York plan unless it's the Coalition's alternative plan. And just to touch on a question that was raised earlier, Cypress Hills LDC is one of the largest employers in the zone, and also I think Michelle asked this question, also the provider of several hundred seats of adult education in the neighborhood. One of the reasons we are urging you to vote no unless the alternative plan is accepted is based on the deep concern we have about the depth of affordability articulated in the mayor's plan. What is included in the mayor's plan does not go far or deep enough for the current residents of our community. 2/3 of our residents living within East New York zoning area already are rent burdened, severely rent burdened, overcrowded, or homeless. In an effort to respond to our current needs and prepare for the future, we're advocating for the creation of 5,000 deeply and permanently affordable housing units to be created that are aligned with Community Board 5's AMI numbers, not New York City's AMI numbers. When you compare the two sets of AMI numbers, you will see there's a significant difference in terms of what people currently living in the neighborhood can afford versus the averages of those citywide. The Coalition recognizes and appreciates the city has already included in the East New York plan a commitment to build one new school building that would accommodate 1,000 students. This, unfortunately, will not satisfy the need for adequate education facilities in the community. The East New York zoning area, especially on the north side of East New York, is already facing overcrowded schools, and this is before an estimated 24,000 new residents move into the neighborhood. Cypress Hills LDC has been the lead agency for the Cypress Hills East New York Beacon program at the IS 302 campus since 1993. Our Beacon program serves over 1,100 community residents yearly in over 20 activities, many of them indoor fitness activities, free to neighborhood residents, and including an ACS-sponsored foster care prevention program that supports 45 families at risk of losing their children to the foster care system. The IS 302 school building, which is in the heart of the plan, is currently facing serious space challenges that could result in the elimination of our Beacon program due to lack of space. We're urging the city to develop a plan that includes committing to the construction of at least 2 new school buildings, as well as a comprehensive plan to deal with the current overcrowding situation in our local schools and allows us to maintain critical community services. In addition to the insignificant number of seats for incoming students in the plan, there are other gaps in community services that we're deeply concerned about, specifically crime prevention. The East New York zoning area is currently served by the 75th Precinct, which is one of the largest geographically based in the city. We are concerned, given the precinct's large catchment area, coupled with an increase in density and residents, that the current resources allocated to the precinct will be grossly inadequate. We're also asking that the draft environmental impact statement assess whether additional NYPD patrols, personnel, and facilities will be needed. In conclusion, but not really.
Well trained. No. Really?
It's in my testimony. We are urging you to vote no on the city's rezone plan unless it is modified to be the community's alternative plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ms. Van Engen, you're not finished. Question?
Hi, how are you? Good to
Good,
see
how are you?
I'm just wondering, has the coalition identified other potential sites for an additional school besides the 1,000? Wait out.
I'm going to make a statement.
Yeah.
We have not identified a site as far as I know of. One of the partners that's been missing from this planning process is the DOE. They haven't been at most of the sessions, and obviously it's an important part of the plan. They're the largest employer in the zoning area if you want to count city government as an employer. But we'd really look to work with the SCA to figure out a viable site for another school building.
Ms. Efron.
You mentioned there were other critical services that may be missing, and perhaps it's in your written testimony, but have you identified others that might fit within the community facility spaces that would become available at the bases of these buildings?
It's possible. I mean, I think it depends on the space and the size of the lots. Fire has come up several times, and all of these are outlined in in the coalition's plan.
That wouldn't fit.
That wouldn't fit. No, there's several things that wouldn't fit, right? But, there's no local hospital that's in Cypress Hills or East New York. We have to have people go to Brookdale or Kings County or Jamaica. There's 2 fire stations that are inside the plan that people are very concerned about being overcapacitated. As I mentioned, the 75th precinct has a very large geographic area, and people in the neighborhood are very concerned that their resources aren't going to be there, especially given the increases in density and number of residents.
Can I have one quick follow-up?
Yeah.
There was something mentioned within the coalition's work about the police athletic league building, and I believe Commissioner Levin referenced it earlier.
Corner of
Could
Liberty
you
in
just give us a little bit of insight into that?
I mean, it's a beautiful old building that needs, I think, and I'm not a community planner, I'm a social worker, but I think needs significant capital improvements. The PAL had used that center for a long time, and the community board hold their meetings there for a long time, but it needs a lot of money to be brought online, I think, to be feasible, whether it's indoor recreation or whatever number of uses I think we could probably think about putting in that center. It's going to take a lot of capital investment. But it's in a great location, very accessible to public transportation.
Any other questions for Ms. Van Engen? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Barry Smith?
How you doing? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Planning Commission, how's everybody? Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, and
My
thanks
name-
for your patience also.
No problem. My name is Barry Smith. I'm the business agent for Local 79. I'm also the president of 100 Black Construction Workers, and I'm a resident of Brownsville, born and raised. I'm here to speak from the heart. No papers, anything. I'm not here to play a joke. This is a serious situation as far as people's lives. And I'm also reentry as well. So we know between 2016 and 2017, it should be 5,200 reentry back into Brownsville and East New York. Okay? Besides the people that we have there that's leaving now, which is probably, because at one time no one ever looked at East New York and Brownsville. And I've been shot and stabbed there. No one would ever look there now. They're coming in here. So I believe that change is inevitable. We all know that. But a lot of people that's there first to be awarded the change. We need real affordable housing. We need real career-orientated jobs, real construction jobs, not just OSHA. We need to have these guys certified in apprenticeship programs as well as the women. Okay, we need local hiring. We need to have something advocated for the people from East New York and Brownsville where they can have an economical foundation where they can be able to survive in the housing, where they can have good jobs. And then remember, we have another generation that's coming up now. About 2 weeks ago, I just went to a father and son's funeral. So the mother buried 2 generations. So we need to have something that's going to be implemented for the kids that's coming up now as far as apprenticeship programs. Everyone is not going to go to college. Okay? We need to have things with hands-on, something sufficient and suffice that we can build up our East New York and Brownsville. Make sure you take care of the people that's in East New York and Brownsville first before you look at those that's coming in. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Montel Brown.
Hello, Commissioners. I am too also a part of Local 79 and a part of 100 Black. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous right now. But, I'm from Brownsville too. I was born and raised in Brownsville. I see the changes coming. And I don't see it for my kids right now because we're not going to be able to afford it soon. So with that being said, we would like to see more union jobs coming to the communities. More people in the communities getting jobs. It's rough out here. And I just want to say we need help, bottom line. I'm a little nervous up here, but
Doing fine.
it is what it is, Excuse me. Excuse me. But I'm just being real about it, We need a little bit more help out here. A lot of these jobs are coming up now, non-union. These guys ain't got this, we go to school for these things, And we can't even get a job no more because everything's coming up non-union. So where that leaves us, the people that went to training for these jobs, And it's, I'm looking for my kids' future now. I personally work every day to make sure my kids go to school. They go into college. I'm paying 2 tuitions right now for my daughters to go to college. I'm only 43 years old, but I'm doing what I have to do as a man to make sure these kids are all right. And we need your help. with, you know, we can't survive with what they trying to pay with these non-union jobs. So I'm just here to just, you know, tell you how I feel about what's going on here. And I want to thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown.
Question for Mr. Knuckles.
What is Local 79? What trade does that?
Labor's International.
Labor's
Mason Tenders.
Thank you.
And Ms. Delos.
Mr. Brown, thank you for being here. Thanks for your testimony and also for the testimony of Mr. Smith. I'm just wondering, how did you find out about Local 79?
I actually I was doing cable back in 03 and 04. And my cousin, she works in the local. She told me about the, you know, the program or whatever. So I applied. I actually have a son that's an apprentice in Local 79 right now. And I thank Local 79 for giving my kid an opportunity to be somebody in life, you know, to make some money and do what he has to do out of life, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, I appreciate this union, you know, and we need to keep it strong. It's falling apart because of these non-union jobs going up right now, you know what I'm saying? But we need help, you know, that's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I know this is improper, please forgive me, but to answer your question, Miss, we put out applications every 6 months.
Yeah.
January 15th is the next time. Anybody that wants to apply can. It's an open door, right? So if you go to our website, laborslocal79.org, click on apprenticeship, and it'll tell you how this is going to work on January 15th, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Edgar Gonzalez.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, Mr. Gonzalez, and again,
I'm
thanks for
definitely
your
going to
patience.
beat the bell. Well, I'm here representing Arlington Village. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous too, but good afternoon.
We're glad you're here.
My name is Edgar Gonzalez. I'm here representing my mother and the families of Arlington Village. Yes, mommy made me do this. My mother, along with many of the residents, have been living in Arlington Village for over 30 years. Arlington Village was built in 1946 by the East New York Savings Bank as housing for the returning World War II veterans and their families. It was developed for low-income families and remained that way for many years. As people moved away, the supermarket we had on Montauk Avenue and Liberty Avenue was closed and the apartments were no longer being rented. They were boarded up and left vacant and abandoned, forgotten. Although many were interested in renting, it wasn't going to happen. Those that stayed made it work, they fixed it for their families, you know, those that stayed made it work, they fixed it, their own apartments to make it work and make it livable for their own families. We're asking to have Arlington Village excluded from the city rezoning plans. We are asking that the families that have endured the last 30 to 50 years in the village be left alone. We ask that the 210 apartments vacant as well as the ones occupied be renovated for the purpose that Arlington Village was built, for low-income families. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Questions? Questions, Mr. Gonzalez? Ms. Delos.
We have we had a chance to tour a bit of Arlington Village, and and I certainly have driven by it a number of times, and you know, always wondered why is there so many units going unrented. Can you just talk a little bit about how many of the units are currently occupied versus vacant?
Right now, I'm going to guess there's about 40 families living there. I grew up in the village, a great place. The owner, Reade Street, refused to rent, the apartments out. So as people moved out, she boarded up the apartments. And a lot of people go by asking to, rent the apartments, but they don't do it. And it's sad because it's a beautiful place. It's right in the heart of everything, in East New York. So if you revive that place, it'll be great. It'll be beautiful to drive down Atlantic Avenue before you head out to the airport to see that place and not wonder what place is that, that's all boarded up.
And the request to leave it alone, I mean, obviously the Bluestone organization recently acquired it.
Yes.
And can you maybe just talk a little bit more about why you believe it's better to leave it alone rather than move forward with the redevelopment?
Because of what I know, they're asking people that live on the Atkins and Montauk sides to move over to the Liberty and Atkins and Berryman side. So they want to move everybody over to one side, so this way the Atkins and Montauk side is completely empty, I guess waiting for the rezoning. So, you know, people are getting called, you know, can you move, we'll renovate this apartment for you if you move over. So that's what's going on.
If you had belief that you would be relocated into a new apartment, would that address your concerns or no?
Well, I'm actually doing this for my mom's. She doesn't, she doesn't want to come live with me, so she says, no, you make sure it doesn't happen.
Very self-interested approach.
Yes, so. But yeah, if it's up to her, she wants to stay where she's at. She's been there for the last 39 years. So it's hard to tell someone in that stage, you know, you got to move across the street. It's not the same. And especially if there's no need to do so.
Have things stayed essentially the same since the Bluestone Group has bought this, or has they gotten worse? Have they gotten better?
I'm sorry, I should have left you.
No, just...
What they have done is they have fixed the apartments that they want people to move into, which is on the Atkins and Berryman side. And they are not affording any repairs to the Atkins and Montauk side, which is unfair, because if you want to make East New York better, let's do that. Let's fix these apartments, and we'll have 210 families there living. So.
Okay. Ms. Levin.
We should thank your mother for making you show up, because you know, this is a large and important site in the rezoning area, and obviously a source location with a lot of issues. Is it rent stabilized? Has her rent been rocketing upwards?
No, it's rent stabilized as well.
And what, aside from maintenance issues, do these buildings have good bones? When they get fixed up, are they nice apartments?
Yes.
Or or they just need to?
No, the structure is good. The inside is not, of course, because they haven't been lived in them for so long. But for instance, my mother's apartment, we have renovated it. We did her bathroom, we did the kitchen floor. But how much can we do when it's it's an apartment? But yes, they are great. It's a great structural place.
So, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Is the best scenario would be that a benevolent landlord would fix up the entire complex and it would be back to where it was when it was built?
Yes.
Or do we start all over?
No, it could be done. If you get the right team in there and renovate the place, you have families living in that place by the end of the year. And from what I know, the city was trying to acquire that Arlington Village at one time, but Reade Street wouldn't sell.
Right. Good. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, switching back now to those in favor. Stephen Banks. I don't know if he's here. I don't think he's here. Reverend Al Cockfield. Reverend Cockfield. Meredith Marshall. Timothy Smith from FDNY. What?
My name is Captain Timothy Smith, FDNY, Community Affairs. I'm here on behalf of the department to speak on the resources available after the rezoning, and we've taken a look at the plan, and we feel that we have adequate resources to handle the rezoning and the building up of the area. If anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer any questions you have in regards to that matter.
Questions for Captain Smith? Mr. Knuckles.
Wouldn't want you to come all the way, Captain, and not have a question asked of you. Well, first, thank you for your service to the city.
Thank you.
I think we heard earlier in testimony that there were 2 firehouses within the rezoned area. Is that consistent with what, well, I should ask you, since I suspect
There's actually
you know.
3.
There's 3. And it's your belief that, based on your expertise, of course, that if this rezoning were to go through, that you need no more than 3?
If the rezoning goes through, we wouldn't need more than 3 firehouses in that area. If that became an issue, the department is more than prepared to provide adequate resources to handle any issues that might come up in that area. It is our belief that the new construction that's being presented and that's going to be built in that area will provide more than adequate fire protection because they're compartmentalized units. And under the new fire code, there would be better fire protection than what exists there now.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Captain? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
You too. Meredith Marshall. Saved by the bell.
Good afternoon. I had a meeting at night and had to run back, so.
Your timing
I used to be in better shape when I was in high school.
Your timing is exquisite.
Okay. To Chairman Weisbrod and the commission, my name is Meredith Marshall, and I'm co-founder and managing partner of BRP Companies, a New York-based firm at the forefront of developing affordable, mixed-income, and mixed-use workforce housing in New York City. Thank you for this opportunity to testify today in support of the proposed East New York Community Plan. By way of background, I was born at Brookdale Hospital and raised in East Flatbush. I attended public schools in close proximity to East New York, and I believe I have a unique understanding of the challenges faced by both tenants and landlords and struggling small business owners. In short, I have been all of the above. Since our beginning in 1998, BRP has developed over 600,000 square feet of real estate projects, and we have over 3 million feet currently in development. We broadly support the de Blasio administration's ongoing efforts to increase the production of affordable housing for low and middle-income New Yorkers, and we hope to contribute to that effort in every possible way. My firm has successfully built affordable housing in 4 boroughs and is completing the rehabilitation of approximately 500 units in East New York, and we plan to commence construction on another 288 units that will be affordable to both low and extremely low income residents later this year. And if I may add, the 500 units is comprised of 68 buildings, and most of the tenants are extremely low and low income, and we've done a rent restructuring, very successful, without any displacement. So it can be done. And the units are handsome, if I may say so myself. It is no secret that there is a severe shortage of workforce housing throughout the city, but this is largely a result of unprecedented growth in household levels over an extended period, which outstrips the level of new housing construction. As this trend continues, we need to develop supply-oriented solutions to alleviate the burdens of increased rent levels and displacement fears. We are fully supportive of the East New York plan because it aims to strengthen East New York and surrounding neighborhoods by investing in new mixed-income housing, it supports economic development programs targeting small business and MWB businesses, and by allocating substantial resources to build new infrastructure such as new schools, improved public spaces, and improved major corridors such as Atlantic Avenue. In addition to supporting East New York Community Plan, we also support other efforts that harness market rate development in order to increase the production of affordable housing. And I can elaborate that in the question period, during the question period, rather. We believe these desired outcomes will be accomplished through the de Blasio administration's mandatory inclusionary housing proposal and the changes sought in the proposed EQA. Simply put, the administration's initiatives will enable for-profit and not-for-profit firms to more quickly and easily develop affordable and senior housing for low and middle-income New Yorkers, and it will enable us to design these buildings in ways that better serve the population's need. Thank you again for this opportunity to testify in support of the East New York plan, and I'm at your disposal.
Boy, you just made it under the bell. I saw that finger really sort of poised. Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Questions for Mr. Marshall? Ms. Delauze.
Hi, thank you for being here. So you said you have 500 units that you're completing the renovation of now, over 68 buildings. That's a lot of work. And you said there were an additional
288 unit, we were awarded the Livonia Phase 2.
Okay, that's right.
And there's 288 units of all affordable housing and community facility and some retail space as well.
Are you looking at any additional sites in East New York right now?
We were, but with the pricing issues, we're actually looking more in Jamaica, Queens, and other areas. The pricing has accelerated over the last few years. Case in point, in Bedford-Stuyvesant, we're buying land at below $50 a foot, maybe in 5 years, in an Nadir after the crisis, and now those prices have been surpassed in East New York. So there's a mismatch between what you can buy and what you can build. But we think that'll be alleviated over time.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Marshall? Thank you.
Everyone's tired, great. All right, doing a great job.
Thank you. Aaron Kaufman from the Hudson Company.
Good afternoon, Chair Weisbrod and honorable commissioners, and Happy New Year. Thank you for hosting this meeting to give members of the public an opportunity to voice their opinions on the East New York Community Plan. My name is Aaron Kaufman, and I'm a proud 9-year Brooklyn resident and also a principal with the Hudson Companies, a real estate development firm established in Brooklyn in 1986. Since our founding almost 30 years ago, we have built or preserved over 5,500 units of affordable and market rate housing, with roughly 60% of those new homes located in Brooklyn. For disclosure's sake, Hudson does not currently own any property within the East New York plan. As head of Hudson's Affordable Housing Group, I'm especially proud of Hudson's track record in providing exceptionally built and highly sustainable affordable housing in East New York. We have built affordable home ownership in Brownsville since the mid-90s, and since 2008, we have developed over 850 rental apartments for households earning between $16,000 and $58,000 per year, as well as safe new permanent homes for formerly homeless families and homeless veterans. In order to do our part to address East New York's high asthma rates, Hudson's efforts have led the neighborhood to become home to the 3 largest solar photovoltaic installations on multifamily buildings in New York State, with over 1 million watts of renewable energy being generated on the roofs of our buildings. Plainly put, we care about this community and believe that the next chapter of East New York's incredible history will be written with the success of this community plan. I recently read a wonderful article discussing who benefits when cities grow and prosper in The Guardian by NYU professor Suketu Mehta. Mehta uses the Coney Island Boardwalk as a model of community success based on inclusion, or more directly, as he states, it's not that everyone is included, it's that no one is excluded. East New York, like Coney Island, is its own melting pot and has been for decades. Mehta goes on to frame successful inclusive planning in 2 plain sentences, and I will briefly illustrate how the plan works well within his framework. The first, don't exclude anyone from the conversation. And I think you are all credited today for hosting this event as part of that. The more housing provided for members of the community, the stronger their voices will be in shaping their community. The plan protects affordable housing by ensuring that at least 50% of the new units will be available for low and moderate income households. The plan rightly preserves existing affordable housing by streamlining small home repair loan programs, providing free legal advice and representation for tenants in harassment cases, and extending regulatory agreements protecting affordable rent levels. I support the plan because it also brings vitally needed green infrastructure to the area. Atlantic Avenue is just one vivid example of a wide street with few trees and long stretches of no trees at all. The plan's vision addresses the lack of green access to local residents by improving parks and creating new green space at City Line Park. I do believe it would send an important message if the plan required that the city continue the dialogue with the community should the plan be enacted. Mayor de Blasio has shown time and time again that income inequality is the central issue of his administration, and this plan certainly represents that honorable goal. Encouraging dialogue will be critical to this plan's lasting success. The second tenet is don't exclude anyone from the celebration. Oh man, I was just starting to celebrate. Real quickly.
Finally.
We received over 73,000 applications for housing in our latest East New York development, or 508 applications per apartment for tenants earning 40 to 50 and 60% of area median income. And I look out in East New York and Spring Creek, and I realize that the zoning limited that ability to provide more units. This is a great opportunity to provide more density and incentivize more affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Questions for Mr. Kaufman? Ms. Ortiz.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for waiting and being patient. One question we've heard today, and I'm interested in your perspective as a developer, and not just on the affordable housing side, but your firm also does market rate housing. We've heard two varying perspectives on the ability to build affordable housing right now in East New York. One being that you can't do it without subsidy. And so the first units out will absolutely need subsidy, and they will need HPD subsidy, and then therefore they will be 100% affordable. And then we've also heard that there is market rate housing being built, perhaps not multi-family buildings, but I'm wondering if you could give us a sense of sort of where are we on that spectrum? What can be built there right now, absent the rezoning?
I think it's tough, to be candid, and thank you for the question. I think it's great. We have a major land speculation problem. I think that's not news to anyone in this room. Our Dumont Green property that we purchased in 2008, across from the movie theater on Linden Boulevard and Eldert Lane, we purchased for under $20 per buildable foot. And we have been getting calls, not 3 to 4 times a day as the homeowner spoke recently, but often, with offers of land 2 doors down for $80 a foot. And we provided formerly homeless units at 30% AMI, 60% AMI. And as we all know, it takes a village to finance affordable housing. Yes, Commissioner De Luz knows a lot about that. I can't think of a market rate development offhand. The neighborhood needs subsidy to build. Construction costs have skyrocketed, and that hasn't helped anybody finance lower income development. It's been very challenging. In fact, we're not even looking in East New York right now because of all the speculation. We are moving on to other neighborhoods like my good friend, Mr. Marshall. And we love East New York, but right now it needs subsidy, especially with construction and land. There's no way around that.
So absent the increased density that this rezoning affords, we're not going to see a lot of development.
I don't think so. I think the only thing that is bolstering affordable housing development right now, without getting way too techie in minutia, is the low-income housing tax credit has never been priced higher. And that is the one thing that is sort of saving the bacon of neighborhoods that are having this kind of speculative land spike. But that isn't enough. That's not sufficient. That's roughly 45 to 50 cents of every dollar needed to finance the development of a building. That is the only, but for that, and that could change any time because those are based on interest rates and lots of other factors that we can't control. I do not see how buildings can get done right now without more subsidy being placed by the city and the state.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Kaufman, even at a zero land cost, could you build in East New York today without subsidy of any significance?
Barely. Barely.
At a zero land cost?
We were lucky enough to win a competition in the South Bronx with dollar land costs, and it is very difficult. We have quite a gap, and these are 13-story block and plank buildings. And so construction costs have gone up to a point beyond where the city and state are comfortable subsidizing, which is understandable on their end. So I would say right now, very challenging, Mr. Chairman.
So if you can barely build without subsidy at almost a zero land cost, presumably it's going to be a very long time before you could build at a market land cost without subsidy.
I believe so. I believe so.
Thanks.
Sure.
Ms. De Luz.
Hey, Aaron, how are you? Happy New Year.
Good afternoon.
Just talking about the 73,000 applications that
Sure.
you had, and you said the income ranges there were 40 to 60% of AMI. Do you happen to know what percentage of the applications were from the local community board?
I don't have that number offhand, but of course, HPD and HDC requires that we must fill half of those units first. And I wish I could give you a more accurate number. I can certainly give it to you afterwards.
Yeah, but mostly I'm just trying to understand just how many more people applied for those units than was able to be provided for.
Yeah, and I will say just real quickly, on the moderate income perspective, and I really mean this, I didn't get to say this in my testimony, but ground floor retail, which we all know is critical and it's the backbone of New York development, you need some moderate income as well. The moderate income households have really been sort of shut out at all levels of financing, local, state, federal. And only recently, to the state and city's credit, have there been more subsidies available. But those households earning between 60 and 100% AMI, they help support ground floor retail. They shop in their building. And they shouldn't be left out of this discussion, just as the very low income shouldn't be left out. The moderate income should not be left out. And we did a private market study as a requirement for funding, found that 5,000 households near Flatlands and Elton, which is where our gateway sites are, there were 5,000 households that earned roughly 80 to 90% AMI, and there was zero supply, zero, within a 1 mile radius. So you have literally infinite demand for moderate income housing, and there's just no ability to get that done. That's a larger discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Any other questions for Mr. Kaufman? Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, switching back to those opposed, the next 5 speakers are Deputy Mayor Diana Reyna, who's already spoken. Borough President, pardon me, Deputy Borough President. David Rager from Local 79. Nadine Beckles from Housing Works. Roger Francis from Public Plumbing Local 1. And Shanti Bowden from New York Communities Cares. What? The change? I'm sorry?
She's Shantae Bowden.
Shantae Bowden, okay. Welcome, and thanks for your patience.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm quite all right. So I'm happy to know I had got a letter from New York Communities Care Service to alert me about the community for the relocation meeting for the East New York and Brownsville in order to save the affordable housing I have been living in since I was 28. It's a shame how poor people are being forced out of their apartments. People who live on a fixed income cannot afford to pay high rent prices. Mayor de Blasio and his big building development, please go somewhere else. The rezone in another area and leave Brownsville and New York City, no, East New York, excuse me, East New York alone so we can live in a peace that we can maintain a rent payment according to our budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, switching back now to those in favor. Yvette Cumberbatch from Local 32BJ. Vito Mustacelli from HPD. Yes? He's here.
Sorry, excuse me.
You're excused, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Weisbrod and members of the City Planning Commission. My name is Vito Mostacciulo, and I am the Deputy Commissioner of HPD's Enforcement and Neighborhood Services. My office enforces the New York City Housing Maintenance Code and the New York City Multiple Dwelling Law, with the goal of ensuring that all housing remains safe and habitable. I'm testifying about my office's role in support of the proposed East New York Community Plan. The work our divisions do every day throughout the city is critical to prevent landlords from using poor maintenance and the denial of essential services to drive tenants out of housing for which the landlord could command higher rents. Because questions have been raised about whether the proposed rezoning of East New York could result in harassment, I would like to describe the very active role we take in East New York, both with our everyday work and specifically in response to concerns about the rezoning plan. HPD's everyday work in East New York includes the reactive activities in response to complaints and proactive activities. Since July of 2015, HPD has conducted over 10,000 inspections, citing almost 9,000 violations. We have spent approximately $320,000 in emergency repairs and have been involved in over 150 housing court cases. Our proactive activity in East New York includes the assessment of 57 buildings through our Proactive Preservation Initiative. Through this initiative, HPD works closely with elected officials and community groups to identify buildings which appear to be struggling with maintenance issues. Continued monitoring of 59 buildings active in the Alternative Enforcement Program. AEP targets the most distressed buildings citywide and authorizes HPD to issue orders, impose fees, and conduct enhanced repairs. The Underlying Conditions Program, which targets buildings with high number of apartments affected by leaks and mold, requires that the property owner hire an architect or engineer to assess the building for systemic problems and ensure that conditions are addressed. The Tenant Harassment Protection Task Force, which was formed not too long ago, attempted to inspect at least 8 properties in East New York, finding illegal construction work at 3 buildings. In coordination with other city and state agencies, including the New York State Attorney General's Office, HPD conducts inspections at properties where owners may be creating conditions to harass tenants into leaving their homes. Task force inspections have led to the issuance of violations and orders, 1 recent arrest, and several ongoing investigations which may lead to the prosecution of additional property owners who use these tactics. We have not at this time seen any indication that harassment is particularly being engaged in within East New York, but will continue to be vigilant regarding the uptick in reports. In response to concerns about the rezoning proposal, we have attempted to survey and speak with property owners of over 500 buildings in the affected area, offering information about the types of loans and initiatives that both Commissioner Bean and Assistant Commissioner Darga spoke about earlier, including small home repair loans and anti-foreclosure programs. Staff are also talking with tenants about their concerns, providing assistance where they can. In addition to speaking with owners and tenants in the buildings, DNP have recently announced a new mobile unit, which we rolled out in East New York around the holiday season. We will continue to be a presence as long as the neighborhood requires our service. Thus far, the primary concern of residents we have spoken with is finding affordable housing units. As Commissioner Bean stressed, HPD believes that East New York rezoning plan before you will help reduce the pressures on rent and prevent displacement by increasing the supply of housing and ensuring that all new housing developments will provide affordable housing units to residents who seek them. The HPD team is committed to ensuring that rezoning does not result in harassment or further deterioration of the existing housing stock.
Take your best 2 sentences.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Best 2 words. Thank you very much. Questions?
I just had
Mr. Knuckles.
Try to talk fast.
Do you have an office, does enforcement have an office in East New York? Or?
I do.
Okay.
I actually have 3 locations in Brooklyn, 1 is in East New York.
Okay. Is that a part of a larger HPD presence, or is it just
So that
your
office houses both my code enforcement division as well as my neighborhood preservation division.
Okay, thank you.
Just to be clear on your jurisdiction, you enforce both the housing maintenance code and the multiple dwelling law. So you enforce with respect to buildings with 3 or more units? Is that?
We actually have jurisdiction over all residential buildings. So even if it's a 1-family home, we can perform inspections, which is covered under the New York City Housing Maintenance Code. 3 units or more are covered under both the Housing Maintenance Code as well as the multiple dwelling law.
Ah, okay. And do you see different issues in buildings of fewer than 6 units, or fewer than 3 units, or 3 units or fewer than you do in larger buildings?
Well, we do see, especially in Brooklyn, more substandard conditions in smaller buildings.
And are those, do they tend to be owner-occupied or not owner-occupied? or-
Well, I don't have jurisdiction over an owner-occupied building.
Even if it has,
The owner may reside in a unit, but if it's solely owner-occupied, I
if
do not
it's
have
a
jurisdiction.
single family, and just to be clear, if it's an owner-occupied building, but there are more than one unit in that building, you would have jurisdiction?
Correct.
Any other questions? Ms. Delos?
Hi, Vito. First, I just want to thank you for you and your team's work out in Borough Park and in the Sunset Park, the fire that happened a few months ago, and responding in that situation. Thank you. Could you talk a little bit about, excuse me, the what role your office has in enforcing the anti-harassment special districts that exist in Clinton and Greenpoint, Williamsburg?
If you're referring to the certificate of no harassment?
Yes.
Sure. So CONHs, or certificates of no harassment, are filed with the Housing Litigation Division, which I oversee. Right? So we do perform investigations, we do public notices, we will go out and perform interviews, all as part of the process when we receive an application for a CONH.
And generally speaking, how long does that process take your unit, and what's the staff capacity that you currently have to work on that?
Well, it's both a staffing capacity issue, but more so there are requirements for public notification. We have to place ads in the papers, so the process generally takes 4 to 6 months.
Can you maybe talk a little bit about the role that local organizations have historically played in that process? Because I just happen to know that HCC plays a particularly
Sure.
strong role in the Clinton district.
So we do provide notification to community-based organizations, to legal services providers, and we do accept their feedback. And so if they do raise any concerns, that's certainly something that we take into consideration.
You may have touched on this, but do you find that the nature, and I know you said that you haven't seen a significant amount of harassment in East New York, but do you see a distinction in the kinds of issues you face in East New York and the kinds of issues you face elsewhere, or is that pretty much similar?
I think that what we find in East New York is what we find widespread throughout the city.
Okay. Ms. Efron?
Along those lines, is there enough data or history for you to recognize whether there's an increase in harassment after a rezoning has been announced, or there's a reason for major speculation in the neighborhood?
Well, I mean, we have a very robust database. So we track everything from the receipt of a complaint to the final resolution. So I have a lot of data with respect to complaints, violations, compliance of violations, litigation, and now more recently with the initiation of the task force initiatives. We have several that we're involved in. We're keeping track of all the information that's coming back from the various task force initiatives. So we can see trends, and we do look at trends, and that helps us direct us with our proactive enforcement activities.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next three speakers, I don't think I announced them earlier, were Jahangir Kabir, Claire Hilgar, and Philip Wesley III. Any of them here? I guess not. Is that, are you?
I'm not Philip Wesley, but they asked me.
I'm sorry?
If I'm not Philip Wesley, because that yes is for.
Who are you here to speak?
I'm James. Yeah, Pastor James.
Who are you here to speak for?
I'm speaking for Faith in New York.
But you have to wait. What?
No, I have his form that if his name is
For
called.
Philip Wesley?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
what I was
thank
saying. All right. So good afternoon and Happy New Year
Good
to all
afternoon
of
and
you.
Happy New Year.
And I really commend your resilience and your endurance. Yeah. And I also have to commend myself for waiting all this time. Whatever is happening here is very dear to my heart. My name is James Osekofi, one of the pastors of Bethesda Healing Center in Brownsville, Brooklyn.
where Bishop Rose is the senior pastor. Today I'm representing Faith in New York and Rafa Coalition. Last month, I think I was at the hearing at Manhattan here. And,
Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to see you all. Now, I think we have heard a lot for and against, and I want to start by saying that many years ago, there was a very wise king, as a matter of fact, the wisest king ever lived, who, after he died, a group of people was led by a gentleman called Jeroboam to petition the new king who happened to be the son of Solomon. He was called Rehoboam. That under your father, that is Solomon, we labored a lot. And now that you have become the new king, we want you to do something for us. So the new king asked them, you go and after 3 days, come back. I'll consult with my elders and I'll give you an answer. So after 3 days, the people came. Now before they came, the king, or the new king, consulted with his elders. And this is what the elders told him. 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 7, powerful scripture. They said to him, listen to these people and be their servant for 1 day, and they will be your servants forever. What am I saying? We have heard so much. And if what we are here to do is about the people, then the real story that we have heard should not be listened just in our ears, but that we should listen with our hearts. And that at the end of the day, the way God perceives these people should be the same way we must perceive these people. Because whether you are a Christian or not Christian, everyone is equally important to God. How did I know that? Otherwise, God would not have sent Jesus to come and die for sinners. Everybody is important. So the people are saying that with all the technicalities, I, the M-I, H, A-M-I, Q, Z, A, and all these things that we're talking about, at the end of the day, what the people need must be met. At the end of the day. And you have the power to influence policy. And as a pastor, I have the power to influence justice. The Bible enjoins us not just to desire justice, but to do justice. On this note, thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next 5 speakers in opposition are Carol Turner, Catherine Greer, or Greer, I think, Nicholas Savitos, Poser A. Poser, and Chris Gundan, I think. Any of those? Gordon, maybe. What? Catherine Green? Yes. Catherine Green.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Everyone, a happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I had some wonderful notes that died in my phone, so bear with me. I'm waiting a long time. But thank you again for the time to speak on behalf of my community. My name is Catherine Green. I'm the founder and executive director of Arts East New York. We are a nonprofit arts organization serving the East New York community for the past 7 years. We've employed several. Currently, we employ 60 community members. We've also, with our Renew Lots project, which was an artist market and incubator project in the community of East New York, where we took vacant space, 2 vacant lots, and revitalized them into a bustling economic development project. We were able to offer 10 storefronts to local entrepreneurs and 4 studio spaces, all made out of recycled shipping containers for community residents as well, community artists. So I say that to say that there are various needs in our community, not just the housing and different development, but there's a need for preserving the life of our creative community as well. I'm a little concerned that the creative community has been left out of a lot of the conversations, and I'm here to speak to that. Go back to my script. With the rise of property value, our artists, the torchbearers of our community and the local culture would lose any opportunities and resources available for affordable space and work in collaboration. we are very concerned. We've been working very hard for the past 7 years to provide those spaces for the artists, for the creatives and artisans in our neighborhood. We fear that they will also be pushed out of this neighborhood as well. Where will they go for affordable space to create? Where will they go to make the city the great city that we all so love? When you come into Manhattan, it's the lifeline. You come and you see the art. You come to New York for the culture. These people have to create in some spaces, and we are working very hard to create those spaces for the artists throughout New York City, as well as local artists. We understand that change is also inevitable. However, all of us present in this room have the ability together to create change that is inclusive, fair, and sustainable. As one who works with local artists, artisans, and beautiful community of creatives, I've witnessed this firsthand for the past 7 years from East New York residents who have, after realizing that New York City had abandoned the area and turned vacant lots into gardens and made them beautiful for our communities, making spaces that have been just quite honestly ignored by the city, turning them into a creative source of income for their families. Local dance companies such as Pure Elements and other community residents who have national and international presence, decided to turn and devote their expertise to training young people in the East New York, Brownsville, Cypress Hills communities where they could have gotten recognition otherwise. They have also turned their eyes on making sure that youth in schools have have access to the arts in schools. Lastly, Artists New York. We've created a cultural infrastructure, again, for the past 7 years, using arts as a tool for social and economic change, not only addressing the need for vacant spaces, but we also use the arts as a tool to to highlight health disparities, injustice, all of those wonderful things that we want to change in our community. And again, I'm so sorry I lost my notes, but thank you so much for your time and any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Green. And also, you can submit written testimony.
Yes, I have.
Please do. And were you here earlier when Ms. Carson from the Department of Cultural Affairs spoke? And I assume you're in a discussion with the Department of Cultural Affairs? Yes, Department of Cultural Affairs is an incredible partner for us, and we applaud the efforts with this new initiative. We're very excited about it. We also are aware of other communities, such as New Orleans, who have developed a loan program for cultural institutions who are facing displacement, because we also are facing displacement. There are larger cultural institutions that have their eyes on East New York that we will have to compete with for grants. And so, the fear also lays on us. How do we compete in the market of new cultural institutions coming into the East New York neighborhood when we've been on the ground, we've been doing the work for so long? How do we sustain ourselves? So with that program in New Orleans, these cultural institutions are able to ground themselves and get a great footing. So it's more economic, and workshops are great, capacity building programs. We've all been there. Almost every grant is attached with a capacity building workshop. We love them. But how many, I lose 40 hours a month, sitting in meetings when we really need the financial capacity to strengthen ourselves. So we appreciate the efforts of the Department of Cultural Affairs, and we really appreciate their partnership, but we would like to see some more innovative thought. The nature of the cultural activities in East New York today to be supported are principally artists who are living and working there, visual artists mostly, or
well, we work
performing
typically
artists,
with I'm sorry.
No.
Go ahead. Yeah, we work typically with visual artists. We also work with performing artists. We have a gallery space in East New York. We're expanding into the Livonia Commons project with Martin Dunn, but we also work with performing artists. Fortunately and unfortunately, a lot of our artists have national and international recognition, but they live in a neighborhood and haven't had the opportunity to work in the neighborhood. So we realized that and created programs around that catchment area. So we've created a way for them to come to the neighborhood that they were born and raised and give back to the community in that way with their talent, gifts, and abilities. So, and also to be able to contribute to their financial efforts as well. So we've been able to put money in the pockets of artists in our very own neighborhood. So we're very proud of that, as at the same time beautifying the community that they so love.
And appreciating your your concern about obviously not seeing the artists that you're working with that are threatened with being displaced in the community. The notion of a community growing is, do you see opportunities in that as well?
Absolutely. You know, there's so many creatives in this neighborhood, and we run into all of them. So visual artists, every day some new artist comes into our office. We are at Hegeman, on Hegeman and Cleveland Street. We have a 700 square foot space there. Every day we have someone from the community that comes and knocks on the door and wants something, you know, some sort of resource, some sort of way to work in the neighborhood or provide access. We actually have one artist, Sophia Dawson, who just is an incredible local artist, has gone from our Renew Lot space and flourished. She created a collection that quite honestly benefit her in tremendous ways and has given her the PR she needs to move her to the next level. Once we close Renew Lots, she now has no studio space. She was on Staten Island for a little bit with a studio space, and then that residency closed. Now she has nowhere to go. I'm trying to find somewhere for her to go, maybe someone's basement or someone's backyard, but we need to create a more sustainable process for artists in the neighborhood to create a source of income for themselves. You know, she has a 5-year-old son. You know, she's driving him back and forth. It's a very important part of our neighborhood. It's a very important part of our city that we need to consider. We need to make sure that it is included in any plans that we have, and especially protecting local artists and local organizations. So yes, there's tons of opportunity. I've walked with Borough President Eric Adams into the IBG zone, looking at spaces to include, you know, for metal workers and things like sculptors who really need space. You know, so there's a lot of creative opportunities. And also, I'm sorry, just one last thing, we've trained several youth in the neighborhood in the cultural economy, so they have an understanding of how the cultural economy contributes to a community's growth as well. So, you know, these young people not only understand the economics behind culture, they also understand the community, the benefits of it, and how it can change our neighborhood just by beautifying a corner.
Thank you. Ms. Efron, and then Ms. Ortiz.
I just applaud what you've done. The
Thank
storefront
you.
projects itself is really quite great for the community. And as a former developer who employed lots of artists in my development, it was very hard to actually find artists within the community. So I just encourage you to make yourself as present as possible with developers if this goes through and they are there, because local artists participating in projects really does enhance the projects enormously, and I think more and more developers and landlords are becoming aware of that, but make yourself really present.
Thank you. If I can add to that comment, we actually have worked with Hudson, Dunn Development, quite a few developers in the neighborhood to provide opportunities for local artists to purchase work, but we also put our artists through rigorous training. So when opportunities do come available in the neighborhood, that they are prepared, they understand time commitment, which our artists have a hard time understanding, understand time commitment, they understand contract, they understand how to find their own grant and sustain themselves going forward. So we really, I pat myself on the back and making sure that they do understand those commitments as well.
Ms. Ortiz.
And in the spirit of those comments, I would say, you know, artists are potentially a real opportunity for the efforts to revitalize the commercial corridor. I mean, you mentioned the storefronts, occupying vacant storefronts, mural programs. I think, you know, the opportunity, gallery drives, visitation, you know, I would suggest, I don't know if you've been in touch with SBS, but the efforts along the commercial corridors will, in the RFP that Blaise Becker mentioned, will likely be looking for opportunities for placemaking, which I think this fits very well with. So I hope you're looking at those opportunities too.
Absolutely. We actually had a really long call yesterday with SBS. And if I can add to that, we've actually been working with East New York Farms for the past 7 years as well. They have a farmer's market on Schenck Avenue between New Lots and Livonia Avenue. What we've done with that, we have a program called Summer Saturdays, where we provide a stage, we provide performers from all over the world to come to the market and perform for free for the community every Saturday throughout July and August. So not only the community members, youth, who have never seen the Japanese taiko drummer can come out and see it, but it also provides a way to drive additional foot traffic to the East New York Farmers Market to highlight that resource in the community, that important resource in the community, teach community members about giving them an opportunity to show them how to sustain their families on a healthy budget, healthy diet, and then also a lot of the farmers there are local, so they grow so we're circulating the local dollar is what I want to say. So, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Green? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next three speakers, Nicholas Savitos, Poser A. Poser, Chris or Cars Gounden? Okay. Switching back to those in favor. Bishop, oh,
No,
I'm sorry?
You got one.
You are?
I am Chris Gounden.
Chris?
Chris Gounden.
Aha. How do you do?
I'm sorry. Okay.
Sorry for butchering your name, but a lot of it's your handwriting, too.
It's not a
So,
problem.
I just take half the blame.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Gounden. I live in Howard Beach. I empathize with those who oppose the rezoning without protection. But I'm here because the Queensborough president has a new way to open roads on private property without notice, hearing, or payment. This new way to open roads on private property does not include the City Planning Commission, does not include the Board of Estimate, and does not include the City Council. A DOT employee with a desk job makes an affidavit that he has seen the public walking on private property and that he's seen the city services provided to the property for 10 years from his desk. Then the Queensborough president asks the city law department for an opinion that some unknown property owner has dedicated his property to the city. Then John Cicerello, Queensborough president's office, enters a public street onto the street index map, and the police arrest the property owner for fencing off his property and being on his property. All of this happens without the Planning Commission, the Board of Estimate, or the City Council. I have 20 copies of John Cicerello's testimony in Gounden versus City of New York, index number 10 CV 3438, document 85, in the Eastern Federal District Court of New York. In those 20 copies, there's an article in the Black Star News about the new way to open a road on private property. But to continue, after the opinion of dedication, the law department claims that under Town Highway Law Section 189, the city does not have to give notice, hearing, or payment. Town Highway Law 189 only authorizes a town superintendent to open roads under Town Highway Law 189. The word town does not even exist in the city charter. This commission should put a stop to John Cicerello changing maps without your input. That's my testimony. But instead of asking you to ask me a question, I have a question for the Planning Commission. Does House Number Division Head John Cicerello have the authority to designate a public street on private property without the City Planning Commission?
Thank you very much. As you know, this is not relevant to this hearing, so you can submit your testimony. We'll look at it. We'll refer it to the right place.
It's been well written.
Thank you.
It's been well decided, and
thank you.
And this commission should investigate for overriding its authority, because that's why we have these hearings.
Thank you.
Okay.
Switching back to those in favor, Bishop.
My name is Pozar.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse
Yes,
me.
That's right.
How do you do?
You said his name correctly, and you tried to say mine right.
Is it Pozar? Is that?
Yes, Pozar. Yes,
I came
that's how you.
close.
Pardon me?
I came close, didn't I?
I saw the intent.
Okay. Thank you.
I came actually to expound on Mr. Gounden's explanation, but I do have to say I'm a vet. I had a voucher. I was paying my rent up in Harlem when the landlord started to call the fire department claiming there was a gas leak. Did it multiple times. I had a back spasm at the time. I had to crawl to the door to open it, or they would have broke it down. So when it comes to protections against landlord harassment, I hope you really take that to heart and get ingeniously creative. According to John Cicciariello of the House Number Division of the Queensborough President's Office, the Queensborough President made an application to the Corporation Council for authorization to open a road based on a so-called opinion of dedication. But under City Charter Section 197C11, authorization regarding the use, development, or improvement of real property shall be filed with the Department of City Planning. The Law Department is not the Department of City Planning. Cicciariello then put a public street on the index to street status map. And there's a section 197C, whatever it is. It says that no map that has, nobody will, when there's a map of subdivision, you will not make changes to that map unless it is with your approval, the Public Planning Commission. As a matter of fact, that's L 1962, Chapter 998-202A. So Cicciariello, and that's hard to say, Cicciariello construed a public street on private property. And L 1962, Chapter 998-202B says, no street, avenue, highway, etc., shall be construed to have been accepted by the city as a street unless such street, avenue, etc., shall lie within the lines of a street on the city map. The city map, the last two alteration maps officially signed by the Board of Estimate, there hasn't been a public anything in Block 14228, Lot 162, since 1899. When the Evans brothers did a survey out there. I want to quote to you from City of New York versus Gundin, 3005-12, Supreme Court, Queens County.
Mr. Posey,
I'll just...
that's it? One more sentence. Pick your sentence.
My sentence is, are you going to allow the Queensborough president to take your responsibility to accept applications to designate public streets on private property without payment, notice, or hearing?
Thank you. Submit it, we'll take a look at it.
Want to answer the question?
No questions. It's not relevant to this hearing, but thank you. Now, going back to those in favor, Bishop Raymond Blanchette, Ibrahim Abdul Mateen from DEP. You are?
Bishop Dr. Raymond Blanchette.
How do you do?
How are you?
Good.
My name is Bishop Dr. Raymond Blanchette. I am the chairman of the Clergy Campaign for Social and Economic Justice in the city of New York, and as well as pastor of Revelation Pilgrim Ministries Apostolic in East New York, Brooklyn. We have approximately 53 churches within the city of New York, and within Brooklyn, East New York, Brownsville area, approximately 38 churches in the area. Development is prolific in New York City. And as development moves into communities of low and moderate income, residents have significant fear of their community being gentrified, with them being priced out of their communities with little or no options for decent, affordable housing that gives families their dignity. East New York is just such a community. We require a dynamic framework to preserve affordable housing, to address the boom in new development, and to protect residents of low income and working families. we support the plan for mandatory inclusionary housing because we need a plan for accountability for how development will be engaged and conducted in East New York that preserves affordability and that creates decent housing stock for a community that desperately needs it. It is true that we cannot embrace blight in an effort to assuage fear, and that's what's happening. We must embrace a plan of action that allows working families to be fearless and not live in conditions that are substandard of living, or to be priced out of their communities entirely with no place to go. The MIH plan requires any new development built under the proposed program to set aside at least 25% of its units as permanently affordable housing serving a range of incomes. Through the city's financing programs, the city is encouraging developers to build developments that are 100% affordable with primary affordability for housing to working families, earning about $18,000 for single persons, up to $47,000 for three-person families. We need to preserve and create quality affordable housing in East New York that lifts the city's poorest working families and helps them to achieve the dignity that they need to raise their families that will become our future. New development that receives subsidies from HPD will require to be 100% affordable at levels described in extra low and low income affordability program, ELA. But what's more important for me as we consider this is that we are now, our organization, and that's really where I want to go to. I can submit these statements, the extended statements in writing. But the Clergy Campaign for Social and Economic Justice, with our network of churches within East New York and Brownsville and vicinity, intend, under this MIH plan, to build a target 500 to 1,000 units of housing. So we have the resources and the plan on the table now to engage this plan. We're looking for the City Planning Commission to really take a look when you consider the importance of this program. A lot of people have come up here and they have expressed opposition to this plan because there's fear. There's fear. Pastor James is a pastor I know in the community.
One more paragraph.
Well, I'm done. I just
okay. Good. And I appreciate it. You're submitting written testimony. So, questions?
Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Pastor, I have I should have thought of this before because we had, obviously, you've been here a long time, so several members of the clergy have testified, although some in opposition and some in favor.
Yeah.
And I guess generally speaking, given the importance of the role you play in the community and the trust and the confidence that people generally have for their members of their parish and the congregation that they're in and the leaders of their congregation, do you see a role for do you see the role potentially that you and your counterparts could play if, of course, you agree with the direction of the proposal to help assuage the fear, at least the fear? There's realities that everyone has, their personal stories are always impacting their take on everything. But from the fear factor point of view, what, if anything, do you think you could possibly do to help at least eliminate that in your day-to-day interaction with your congregation that may be impacted by this?
The answer to that question is easy, which is why I'm here. The only way to assuage fear is to empower stakeholders. You have a community that the reason why they're fearful is because they're disempowered. They have no ability to make a determination on what their future is going to be. When they walk out their door, they don't know how the lamppost got there, why the sidewalk is there. They're not engaged in the dynamic aspects of our civil society and how they participate in it. So the only way, and that's why we've decided to utilize our resources the same way that they did with EBC to create 500 to 1,000 units of affordable housing under this plan. Because unless the community is participating in the plan, unless they are at stake and they're working, and not just on the back end, in terms of this affordable housing is being made for you at 30% of AMI or 40 to 60% of AMI, right? Which are terms that people are really like, you know, what's going on here? And they feel that these terms are being thrown about to confuse them, and that's why they're saying, you know, no way. But we're engaging this process because we're saying we understand the conditions in these communities. We have to deal with it every day as leadership. And we are saying very, very clearly that we are willing to utilize our resources to work with the city to build dynamic, affordable housing, but these criteria, a framework must exist. This criteria has to be present, so that developers can't come in there, and as a number of developers that were here and people that were here before were telling you, they have now driven the price of property from at one point $15 to $20, you know, a square foot to now $80 to $100 a square foot in East New York, where you have families that own homes that are now in foreclosure and their homes are underwater. Okay, so they're saying, well, how come I can't benefit from it? Must the community be gentrified for people to benefit from this? The last thing I want to say about that as well is that this plan is important for another dynamic reason. The substation, the Con Ed substation on Linden and Rockaway, okay, which serves East New York and Brownsville, okay, can't sustain the load in East New York, Brownsville, in East Brooklyn, okay? If that substation were to go under, okay, it would knock out power, not just in that area, but for the entire city of New York and the region, just like we had that brownout a number of years ago. They know this. Brookdale Hospital, which I work with, now has occasional brownouts, and it's only now that Con Edison is admitting that the reason why they have the brownouts is because they're reducing power to prevent a large-scale blackout in that community. Now there's a plan afoot to bring billions of dollars now into the community using solar power. And now we have the ability to educate individuals in the community, to give them real solid job training, and to now allow them to participate in the economy in a way that they have not before. So now what's going to happen? Now we're going to gentrify the community, toss them out, and again, the cycle continues where they're not going to be able to participate significantly in their own economy. So this is something that I think needs to be addressed, and that's why we need such a plan.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Blessings to you. Next speaker is, and the next three speakers, Ibrahim Abdul Mateen from DEP, followed by Evelyn Cruz, who's here, I don't know if she's still here from, there she is, from Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez's office, and Stephen Smith.
So my notes say good morning, Chairman. So good morning to the Chairman and members of the City Planning Commission. My name is Ibrahim Abdul Mateen. I'm the Director of Community Affairs at the City's Department of Environmental Protection. On behalf of Commissioner Emily Lloyd, I'm pleased to appear before you today to highlight the work that the de Blasio administration and DEP to keep New York City affordable, specifically related to annual water and sewer rates. As the Commissioner may know, the New York City Water Board annually authorizes the water and sewer rate for all New York City property owners. In May 2015, the New York City Water Board adopted a 2.97 increase, the lowest increase in 15 years. While no increase is welcome news, the need to maintain and improve the delivery of water and sewer service is critical. In the absence of state and federal assistance for drinking water and wastewater infrastructure, water and sewer rates paid by property owners are the only source of revenue to support this service, which is essential for local public health, quality of life, and Economic Development, and which is highly regulated at the state and federal levels. I grew up drinking New York City tap water. Just want to note that with all the water bottles I see in front of me. As part of this year's rate,
Fair point.
as part of this year's rate, a number of progressive changes to rate schedule were introduced, all aimed at providing significant benefit and assistance, especially to low-income senior and disabled homeowners. A freezing of the minimum charge for the second consecutive year for more than 150,000 customers who use fewer than 100 gallons per day, which a quarter of all single-family homeowners do, many of them seniors. Those customers are currently billed at the minimum charge of $1.27 per day. An expansion of the Home Water Assistance Program, which first introduced by the de Blasio administration in 2014, which provides a $116 credit annually to 12,500 low-income homeowners who qualify for the Federal Home Energy Assistance Program. This year, as you may have recently read in the press, the program was significantly expanded to include an additional 46,500 low-income senior and disabled homeowners who receive Department of Finance property tax exemptions. Partnering with the Human Resources Administration and Department of Finance, DEP has been able to apply this credit to approximately 52,000 New York City homeowners. It is important to note that homeowners do not have to do anything to receive this credit. It will appear magically in their next water and sewer bill for qualifying customers automatically. In council members Espinal and Barron's districts, parts of which cover East New York, 1,580 property owners will receive the Home Water Assistance Program credit this year. Also, an expansion of the leak forgiveness program, which has saved customers more than $83 million in leak-related water charges since 2011. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to appear before you to highlight these efforts of the administration and the department.
Thank you. Did you say what's the income cutoff for eligibility for?
That I can't tell you directly. I know that it's tied to the federal Home Energy Assistance Program. So whatever that specifically that.
Could you get back to us and
yes.
just let us know?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Deluz.
How are you? Happy New Year, Ibrahim.
Yes.
Nice to see you outside of
Indeed.
touring combined sewer overflow tanks. Just following up, first off, there's a lot of good news in what you just shared for both homeowners and multifamily property owners. And I'm just wondering, has there been any thought to extending that program for homeowners that are low income or disabled to homeowners who may be renting to low income people or who have tenants that are disabled? I think that might address some of the issues that have been raised today. So that's one question that I have. And the other is, and perhaps some of this